Coming up, U.S. President Donald Trump has reached a deal with Democratic leaders to raise the federal government's debt ceiling. Kenyan scholars say BRICS could have a larger influence on the rest of the developing world. Hello and welcome to Economy Report. I'm Zhang Zhao in Beijing. First, let's take a look at the global markets. In Asia, Chinese stocks closed lower on Thursday, with the benchmark Shanghai Composite Index down 0.59%. Hong Kong stocks fell 0.33%. Tokyo stocks closed higher Thursday, with the 225 issue Nikkei stock average rose 0.2%. The US dollar declined against most major currencies on Wednesday as the investors were digesting the latest remarks from a key Federal Reserve official. Gold futures on the COMEX division of the New York Mercantile Exchange fell Wednesday as traders booked profits after the previous session's rise to nearly one-year high. Oil prices rose on Wednesday as more refineries shut down by Hurricane Harvey began to restart. Now, the latest on the U.S. stocks from our correspondent Sun Meng in New York.
Okay, let's take a look at our stocks market. U.S. stocks rose on Wednesday as the two top Democratic leaders said President Donald Trump would support a debt ceiling extension and a government funding plan. Investors have been fretting about the possibility of a government shutdown if the debt limit wasn't raised. Traders also pay attention to the comments from the Federal Reserve Governor Lael Brainard and assess the possibility of another interest rate hike later this year. Brainard said Tuesday that the central bank should be cautious in raising rates while inflation remained weak. Overseas, the European Central Bank (ECB) is set to meet later this week. The ECB is widely expected to start preparing market for ending its QE program tomorrow, said Chris Lowe, chief economist of FTN Financial, on Wednesday. This is Omeng reporting from New York Stock Exchange.
Thank you, Omeng. Now turning to agriculture futures, here's Virginia McCarthy in Chicago with the latest.
I'm Virginia McGathy here on the floor at the CME Group, reporting to you on the grain market. Today in soybeans, we were up again. Thank goodness. The futures rallied, and they really have some bullish momentum, and it really continues to grow. We're up at a recent high right now, and technically speaking, we had a little bit of a breakout on the high side. Corn is on the upswing. It has been firm. Finally, the markets have created a solid bottom. We've got some buying support that's really holding the market up somewhat, and the selling has just been exhausted, and so now the market's getting ready to turn. Wheat also is climbing, finally coming off its bottom, really showing that the bottom is pretty much in, up higher for the last couple of sessions right now. It's a slow grind, really creating that corrective phase. Thank goodness. So that's giving a little bit of strength to the market. That's all from the floor at the CME Group. I'm Virginia McGathy.
Thank you very much, Virginia, and we'll keep you updated on the daily agriculture futures. U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday reached a deal with Democratic leaders to raise the federal government's debt ceiling. Part of a package also includes billions of dollars of aid for Hurricane Harvey victims. The agreement was passed by the House of Representatives on Wednesday and looks to fund the government through December the 15th. It also allows the debt limit to be raised and makes about $8 billion available in emergency aid for Harvey victims. Congress will need to approve the deal before it is finalized. Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One he had a very good meeting with House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer said in a joint statement that, unquote, in the meeting the president and congressional leadership agreed to pass aid for Harvey, an extension of the debt limit, and a continuing resolution both to December the 15th, altogether. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin has also urged Congress to raise the nation's debt ceiling in coming weeks as the Hurricane Harvey aid needs more government spending. Mnuchin told lawmakers in July that the Treasury's cash could only fund the government operations through September the 29th. The vice chairman of the U.S. Federal Reserve, Stanley Fischer, submitted his resignation for personal reasons on Wednesday. The move adds another vacancy in the Fed's 7-member board.
The central bank said Fisher's resignation will be effective in October 2017, just several months before his term was due to expire in June 2018. Fisher is 73 years old. He is a world-renowned economist and former head of the Bank of Israel. He joined the Fed board in May 2014, serving as chairman of the board's Committee on Financial Stability. Fisher's departure comes as U.S. President Donald Trump prepares to reshape the Fed board. It currently has 3 vacancies. Trump nominated Randall Corliss as the Fed's vice chair of supervision. He is an investment fund manager and former U.S. Treasury official. Trump has also begun the search for the Fed's chair, as Janet Yellen, the current chair, will see her term expire in February. The U.S. media said Yellen and Director of the National Economic Council Gary Cohn are among contenders to lead the central bank next year. But Trump had said he won't announce his nominee for the next Fed chair until the end of this year.
The U.S. Chamber of Commerce and congressional leaders have urged America not to withdraw from its South Korea free trade deal. President and CEO of U.S. Chamber of Commerce Thomas J. Donahue said his organization opposed Americans' withdrawal from the trade deal in the strongest possible terms. He said the Chamber of Commerce do not believe this move would create a single American job. Donahue also mentioned that the trade deal with South Korea, known as KORUS, has boosted U.S. exports in a number of areas. He argued that the move would also damage White House relations with the allies in the business and agriculture communities and in Congress. Meanwhile, foreign national lawmakers have re-emphasized the importance of U.S.-South Korea relations amid tensions on the Korean Peninsula. In a joint statement, congressional leaders called the agreement a central element of the U.S.-South Korean alliance. Last month, both countries held renegotiation talks discussing trade imbalance but reached no agreement. Media reports say the Trump administration is considering initiating the withdrawal process as early as this week. Trade representatives from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico on Tuesday claimed that they have made progress in the second round of NAFTA talks, despite President Donald Trump's threat to terminate the deal. In a joint statement, the 3 parties said the important progress was achieved in many disciplines.
I am pleased to report that we have found mutual agreement on many important issues. Our work continues at a record pace. By the end of this round, we will have tabled over 24 chapters. These chapters represent a new modern agreement which, once concluded, will support robust economic growth in North America for decades to come. As you know, these negotiations are a very important priority for President Trump.
According to a statement released by the USTR's office, and quote, more than 24 working groups comprised of trade experts and technical officials worked diligently to advance the discussions and exchanged information and proposals. It was a view echoed from the Mexican side.
En el transcurso de estos 5 días, más de 20 grupos de trabajo compuestos por expertos comerciales.
In the past 5 years, over 20 work groups that formed by trade experts and officials from each side have conducted in-depth discussions. Several groups have formed written results and will continue to be discussed in the following negotiations.
En las próximas rondas de negociación.
Canadian Foreign Affairs Minister Chrystia Freeland pointed out that the trade between the 3 nations had at least tripled since 1993.
We're here today to further cement the partnership between our 3 countries by continuing our discussions on the modernization of NAFTA. Canada, the United States, and Mexico all wholeheartedly share the goal of reaching a mutually beneficial agreement. The North American Free Trade Area is the biggest economic zone in the world. Canada, the U.S., and Mexico together account for 1/4 of the world's GDP, with 7% of its population. These strong economic fundamentals are a compelling argument for our work here, for bolstering what works and improving what can be made better.
Despite Trump's recent threat to terminate the 23-year-old trilateral trade deal, ministers from the 3 countries reaffirmed their commitment to an accelerated and comprehensive negotiation. Trump took office with a pledge to revise NAFTA to better benefit U.S. industries and jobs, but recently announced at a rally that he was also considering withdrawing from the treaty. The third round of NAFTA talks will take place in Canada on September the 23rd to 27th. Germany's manufacturing sector has entered the third quarter with a surprise drop in orders. According to the latest official data, industrial firms recorded 0.7% less orders in July compared to the same month last year. Economists had predicted a slight rise of 0.3%, following a strong order growth of 0.9% in June this year. However, domestic orders fell by 1.6%, while foreign orders stagnated. Despite the decline, the government said order activity remained at a very high level. In the past quarter, German firms have secured nearly as many orders as last seen before the start of the economic and financial crisis in 2008. Officials further noted an unusually low number of large orders in July, creating an unduly pessimistic view of overall business activity for the month. Many economists remain relaxed and describe the figures as a glitch. Nevertheless, some analysts warn a strong euro could still harm the growth prospects of some German exporters in the medium to long term. Let's take a look at some news from Europe. Local media reported that Spain will not join in the race to implement the 5G telecommunication technology for the moment.
Spanish Minister for Energy, Tourism and the Digital Agenda has commented that Spain will not join in the race to implement 5G technology. He said Spain had the aim of always to have the best individual infrastructure, but for the moment there is no planned date for 5G technology implementation for long-term consideration. In Spain, current priority is to ensure that the entire country has access to 4G and fixed broadband connectivity, which so far only covers 70% of the nation. However, the Spanish government will allow 5G tests to be carried out on the 3.5 gigahertz bandwidth.
According to a YouGov poll on Monday, Macron's popularity has fallen back to only 30%. The 39-year-old president has seen a steep fall in his popularity over the summer, falling from 36% in August and 43% in late June. His government's plan to overhaul France's protective labor laws is seen by some as undermining workers' rights. The centrist president has been hemorrhaging support from the left. Macron lost 8 points among the socialist voters, 7 points among the far left, and 6 points among the centrist voters. However, the president recovered 6 points among the right-wing sympathizers, attaining 45% of favorable opinions. French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe also lost 5 points over the month and is now favored by only 32% of voters. Unemployment in Spain rose by 46,400 people in the month to August. The Spanish Ministry of Employment and Social Security said at last count there was 3.4 million registered unemployed people across the country. Unemployment especially rose in the services sector, although it dipped in the agriculture sector. However, according to the Sociological Research Center, optimism is on the rise for Spain's economy. Its consumer confidence figure rose to 108.8 points over the 100-point mark, meaning that people are optimistic. The CCI has been rising for 3 months in a row after having fallen by 1.3 points in May. On a year-on-year basis, the CCI is up 11.5 points compared with August 2016. The research center conducted more than 1,500 interviews for the CCI, helping forecast consumers' behavior and predict the country's economic performance.
Kenya scholars are paying close attention to this week's BRICS Business Forum that took place in Xiamen, China. While Kenya might not be a member, they said the grouping could have a larger influence on the rest of the developing world. President Xi Jinping summarized 3 important practices as the 3-point BRICS spirit. First, treating each other as equals and seeking common ground while shelving differences. Second, taking a results-oriented, innovative approach to make BRICS cooperation benefit all. And third, developing BRICS itself to help others with the well-being of the world in mind. According to Grishan Ikiara, lecturer of international economics at the University of Nairobi, the 3 points are very important for BRICS countries.
The president of China is trying to make the BRICS country come together in a more united way, in a more with a stronger cooperation, and be able to influence the global economic and political issues.
Kijin Morambasi, an international relations at Kenyatta University, Kenya, said the 3-point BRICS spirit reflects the state of regional and international equations, as well as the state of development in the BRICS countries.
Also acknowledge the different dynamics of internal dynamics of the states that make up the BRICS and the different capabilities that exist there. And what he tried to see is how these different capabilities can be synergized, can be brought together to bring about collective strength. Because despite the fact that each of these states have different domestic problems, they have common goals, such as economic development.
He added that the 3-point BRICS spirit certainly provided some answers to the country's common problems. According to Kijin, the 3-point spirit is crucial for the establishment of any effective partnership.
One, he was looking at how the member states of the BRICS can have results-oriented development. This is where the states not only meet to look at prospects for cooperation, but to see what results can be achieved from this.
As the 9th BRICS summit concludes in southeastern Chinese city of Xiamen, one institution that had a lot of attention was the new development bank. We spoke to an expert who said the bank could play a key role for developing countries.
The New Development Bank, or the NDB, is a multilateral financial institution founded by BRICS, a bloc made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa in July 2014. The bank formally opened in Shanghai in 2015 and approved its first series of loans worth $811 million in April 2016. Experts said the bank provides an alternative to traditional funding on the world stage.
In the geopolitical terms, there has been a move to reform the international financial institutions, particularly the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. But unfortunately, there has not been too much movement there, and the movement has, if there has been any, has been very slow. And this has frustrated countries like China and India, which are important players in the international financial institutions, that they are not being able to get the right amount of weightage that they deserve. And this has led to the initiative to set up the New Development Bank, which I think is a good approach, because it also shows that if we are not going to see reform in the existing structure, it may lead to the creation of new and alternative structures.
As well as providing a new alternative, the expert also believed the bank could ultimately help some of the world's poorest.
It's quite clear that there is a great requirement for new sources of funding. For example, there is one estimate that if the Sustainable Development Goals are to succeed, they would require roughly $1 trillion a year between now and 2030, every year. That's a lot of money. And where is those resources and those funds going to be generated from? And that's where perhaps the New Development Bank can play a role.
In September, the first project financed by the NDB started operation in Shanghai. Thanks to a $76 million loan, a new 100-megawatt solar power system will be built on the rooftops of factories in Shanghai's Liangang industrial area. Sid, who says he is hopeful of the bank's success, pointing out that it can pull on the unity between the BRICS and that the bank can learn from previous organizations.
Partly because of the structure of the bank, that they've tried to follow in some ways the good practices of the World Bank. And that's a useful model to have. to develop a bank like the New Development Bank. It is truly multilateral in that sense, and it is also going to open up new avenues of funding for not just the BRICS countries, but other countries as well. That's why I'm very optimistic about the New Development Bank.
Let's take a look now at some economic news from China. Up first, the China Arab States Expo began on Wednesday in the northwestern Chinese city of Yinchuan. Take a look. Let's take a look now at some economic news from China. Up first, the China Arab States Expo began on Wednesday in the northwestern Chinese city of Yinchuan. The expo was drawing representatives from 47 countries and regions. The four-day event will focus on trade in commodities and services, as well as cooperation in technology, investment, and tourism. The Belt and Road will be highlighted during the expo, and forums on high-speed railways, logistics, and credit will be staged. Executives from 1,080 companies and nearly 5,000 exhibitors covering 31 industries, ranging from transportation to big data, are present. A total of 321 deals related to science and technology, finance, energy, agriculture, health, tourism, culture, and education were inked during previous events, with total contract worth tens of billions of US dollars. Along the Asian Silk Road trading routes, the Belt and Road is aimed at building an infrastructure and trade network linking Asia, Europe, and Africa, with the Middle East playing a crucial part. China-Arab trade reached $171.14 billion US dollars in 2016, and agreements on projects worth $40.37 billion were signed between the two sides, up 40.8% from 2015. China's non-financial direct investment in Arab countries surged 74.9%. Most listed companies reported increases in their operating revenue for the first 3 quarters as the Chinese economy firms up. Of 1,211 mainland-listed companies that had announced Q3 earnings forecasts as of Monday, 906 predicted higher profits than the same period of last year, more than 77% of the total. Among them, 181 firms forecast year-on-year net profit growth of more than 100%, and 14 announced net profit growth of over 1,000%. Shenzhen Properties and Resources Development Limited predicted a net profit growth of 8,114% for the first 3 quarters of the year, the biggest increase among all companies that have announced Q3 earnings forecasts. Also, Xinjiang Tianshan Cement Corporation Limited forecast a net profit growth of 6,139% for the first 9 months.
专业的团队，丰厚的经验。Welcome to Chicago. Welcome to the Lake Cook Law Group. 投资理财、法律咨询，芝加哥专业律师团队为您的梦想提供最安全的保障。
Hi, this is Little Chinese Channel, 小小中文 Lesson 4. In this lesson, we will be teaching you these 6 Chinese characters. From our last lesson, we learned the character Ba. If we had a horizontal line and a dot on top, what does it turn into? Liu, liu, liu means 6. 60, 60, 60, 60 means 60. 16, 16, 16, 16 means 16. Liu is part of these 2 characters. If we take Liu and add an X under it, what does it turn into? It turns into Jiao, Jiao, Jiao means to meet or to intersect. 交朋友, 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 交朋友 means to make friends. 交叉口, 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 交叉口 is an intersection. These 2 characters contain 交. If we remove these 2 strokes and add a line under it, it becomes 不,不,不 means no or not. 不同的,不同的,不同的,不同的 means different. 不好的,不好的,不好的,不好的 means bad. Let's learn a new character. What's this? 厂,厂,厂 means factory. 工厂,工厂,工厂,工厂 is also a factory. 厂长,厂长,厂长,厂长 is the factory manager. If we put a dot on top, it transforms into 广,广,广 means wide. 广大,广大,广大,广大 means vast. 宽广,宽广,宽广,宽广 means wide or broad. A new blue character. It's R. R. R means son. 儿子,儿子,儿子,儿子 means son. 儿女,儿女,儿女,儿女 means children. That's right. Leo means 6. Jiao means to meet or to intersect. 不 means no or not. 厂 means factory. 广 means wide. R means sun. Bye-bye. Your lesson is done.